Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Yahweh being the true, powerful name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai being the true name of His only begotten Son, the one who people in this world need to call Jesus Christ. We give double honors to the other apostles of the great millstone who rule well. Salutations and much love. The rest of you, sincere Akim, pushing the word in truth and sincerity. This is the cleric Azar coming to you with another lesson. And I'm just continuing on my lot and to get right into it, going right through with the spirit. I was thinking about basically, I've done other lessons where I brought out the fact that I've a bit of a background in martial arts, and I've been an instructor, and I've done teachings of all different genders and ages and so forth. And one of the things that I noticed, some of the best schools always have a lesson plan or the belt material down. And if any of you have ever taken Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to find a lot of professors have, they don't have lesson plans, okay? And they just learn, you learn one move one day, and next day you may learn the move that had to do with the move that you learned the other day. But I'm training under a very high leveled individual, and his lesson plan information is unbelievable. I always noticed the best schools that had the lesson plan, the belt requirements printed out for you, something that you can review. Well, anyway, this particular instructor has this stuff online. So if you're always reviewing these particular techniques, they become like secondhand. All right. So just like when it comes to this truth, I'm saying this because when it comes to this truth, it's the same kind of thing. Some cases you may need to repeat those particular basics that you've learned before. Like for instance, I had an individual, I'm not going to say his name, but he one time he called me and was asked me, he's like, hey, how many sons that Israel had? It was, of course, 12. and we were going back and forth with the whole Ephraim and Manasseh thing, but we forgot that Joseph and Dan were those two. So technically there were 12. It's just, we forgot, Dan eventually, even though it technically is an Israelite, he's just not. Ephraim and Manasseh replace Joseph and Dan. So just those little things. Like for instance, just recently, in fact, over 10 years ago, I realized, just my own research, I realized that there's different Marys in the New Testament. And I'm not talking about this Mary Magdalene and Jesus Mary, but even Lazarus' sister. Lazarus' sister had a Mary in his family. Just little things like that. Sometimes you need just to review things and reread things. Even though we read a precept upon precept, sometimes you need to go back and do read it like, not necessarily like a novel, but and not continue to read it like that, but just like you need to read a section, and then like let's say you go through a verse and you think you'll know the breakdown of it. Like, oh wait a minute, maybe there isn't a breakdown available. Maybe you can go look that up, or maybe you can ask a brother in the camp or somebody you can give a call to and say, hey, was this mean this? Is this something where am I going with this? But a lesson plan is almost like a things to do list. Sometimes when I was training certain students, I had to tell them, like, okay, that's great, you have this strength, but sometimes you need to work on your weaknesses. Like, for instance, for me, like my Hebrew is pretty weak. My writing Hebrew is pretty weak. My history should be stronger, and I have no excuse why. I remember that's one of the main things that kept me so strong when I first got into the truth was I sat down, I did my timeline. I did a timeline from, I want to say pre-pyramid, pre-Egyptian stuff. I went pretty far back, and I went into that because I always wanted to know to myself, and the elder apostles have taught us from the beginning. If you want to know the mystery, you got to know the history, and if you shouldn't have to be convinced by somebody about this truth. Like, you should be able to go in and break it down, and so you can believe it yourself. You shouldn't have to take another person to do this. Okay, but sometimes you, as your own spirit, and I know from my own spirit, sometimes I need to hear this information, regurgitate it again. I need to go over this stuff again to hear it. Sometimes you get so used to all the fluff in the world, And this could really take a toll on your faith. All right, because it's not aligning what the spirit is telling you and what's leading you to do. And this is going to be an important time to really be in, especially during a time of Jacob's trouble. Because hey, what is the commandments? Study to show thyself approved. Okay, and you want to be that faithful disciple that the Heavenly Father, once He sends His Son, He's going to find Him doing the work. Okay, so just something to get. Just to spark your creativity, because as an artist, sometimes you can get so caught up in just certain ways of doing things that you don't get out of your certain mold. All right, and I know one of the brothers that was talking. I forget. I'm terrible with names, good with faces, but I know one of the brothers that was putting in the chat was talking about It's lucky for not being remember the brother's name. He was just talking about how sometimes you got to break it up. Sometimes you're not in the. I think it was the brother from GMS South Carolina. I think he was saying how sometimes you can't. He used to do a certain way of going out on the beach and talking to the brothers, talking to people on the beach and doing walking talks and things of that sort, or doing the lessons in the car and so forth. And for me, I work from home, so I try to find my little breaks in between to throw out my little lessons and so forth when I get my time, especially when it's not busy. And so, especially now, we have a little extra help, like a little extra time to do these things, because you got to take advantage of those kind of things. But a lesson plan is like a things to do list. And what I like is I like to list the things I like to do, I like to get done, and like check it off. All right, so like I said, like the weakness, I can sit back and say, hey, one of my fellow assistant instructors in martial arts 30 years ago was like, hey, he was telling the kids, hey, try at least 15 minutes a day. And one of my favorite kickboxing champions, Benny the Urquidez, was like, sometimes a good habit only takes that first 10 minutes in your mind if you're making up your mind to go ahead and do it. Okay. So it's just like this little lesson plan, what it has on here. It has the teacher, subject. You can have that too. Like, there was this funny film, Better Off Dead, with John Cusack. And there was this, the teacher asked all the students to bring out their homework. And everybody was bringing out these little file cabinets and their briefcases and so forth. And John Cusack, the only thing he had was a folded up paper with gum in between the paper that said homework due on this day. So the homework wasn't even completed. So you want to be that faithful disciple that knows how to flip that talent. Okay. And so when it's time for the power shot to return or the master to return to check on what his servant was doing, you want to have been able to flip that talent. And that's being able to get out there and do the work and being able to get the message out, which is the whole commandment of the Heavenly Father. Okay, get out on the highways and byways. Okay, and but yeah, it just helps you. It just covers your bases, and once you notice, like, you cover your lesson plans, what you do is you can create more lesson plans on top of different other subjects that you feel as though you're a little weak on, and in that way, you always feel as though you're covering your bases. Like for me, I need to start working on the more historical aspects of the Apocrypha. I felt bad one of the last camps I attended, they were talking about the Ptolemies and Seleucids. Now, I have it written down, but for someone to sit back and ask me from the top of my head, I was like, oh man, I couldn't retain that information, So sometimes you gotta test yourself, just just different ways to skin a cat. So some ways, like, we're so used to the go-to scriptures for certain questions that are asked, but you'd be surprised that there's other scriptures out there too that back up the same question that was asked. You just gotta know where to find it, though. Like, for instance, I was in Deuteronomy 33. It was talking about hero Israel, and I'm roughly paraphrasing. It was talking about hero Israel. I said it to my mother. I'm just here to read it here. Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 29 says, "Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee." Now, I like that. Thine enemies shall be found liars unto thee. So almost like we're used to hear in Revelation 2 and 9, Revelation 3 and 9. But here it is. This is in the Old Testament. It's talking about the enemies of Israel being liars. Okay? And, hey, that's a faith booster right there. Okay? But this is just something to just help you out, you brothers. Some brothers, just could probably have this information in their head. Some brothers, some brothers need to write things down. Like me, I like to write things down. Maybe I like my own handwriting. But I just want to bring it out. Hopefully this is edifying. I want to give all praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, who gives me the strength of the spirit to continue to strive and adore in these last days. Shalom to the hopeful elect. On to the next video.